job.
Thanks. Yeah, so my job is to very briefly bring this home. This is not just an issue out east. It's not just a Chicago issue. It's tempting to say that Chicago is our future, right? They had Arne Duncan, and now Duncan has gone national, and we all get to enjoy the benefits of that. The future is now. This is happening right now. This is not something that we should sit around and wait for. As CORE has done, although it was well underway before CORE got going, but they organized and they planned, and that is what it will take to combat some of this stuff in every city. And I just want to talk very briefly. Basically, I want to identify what PEJAM is all about, the group that organized this part of the day, and then also just a couple of the key highlights. There's a lot of things to talk about, but just a couple things locally. And so first of all, Public Education Justice Alliance of Minnesota started about 2 years ago, and it basically started with Ty Moore over here and myself. I had been the union president. I had been working internally in the union to try to bring about change, but I also recognized, at the same time Ty was having a similar idea and other people came in on this, that this is going to take a collective effort. And CORE became very much kind of a model. There are other groups in New York and other places that have similar grassroots efforts in place. And it's going to take true grassroots efforts. As was mentioned, there are plenty of AstroTurf groups that are alive and well here in Minnesota and growing every day. And they are getting millions of dollars to support people who come in, and their full-time job is to basically push these reforms. PEJAM is not made up of anybody other than full-time teachers and full-time students and full-time parents. And so this effort is part of PEJAM's sort of multiple attempts to try to push back. And part of it is just to inform people. Not too many people get to hear the voices that you're hearing today. We've been able to bring in Karen Lewis about 1.5 years ago, before Chicago became famous for what they just did. But we had a good turnout then. We had a guy named Brian Jones come in from New York, who's been very involved in similar efforts out there. Locally, we had Myron Orfield give a presentation on the increase in segregation that's taking place as a result of the charterization and privatization of our schools. These efforts are all just a handful of people trying desperately to get the message out. We have, by the way, no funding. I have to make a side appeal that if you can kick in extra money to help cover the costs of bringing these gentlemen in, that would be greatly appreciated. So if you didn't get a chance to make a donation, maybe we'll try to pass that around. Oh, it's passed around over there. So that would be very helpful. Again, PEJAM is not just about this educational piece. We need people out there who are really challenging what's happening. And all of these things, as I said, are playing out right now in Minneapolis, in Minnesota. A couple years ago, it started with North. When we first got started, North was being closed, and we just sort of jumped in the struggle without much of a plan, because it was happening immediately. To some degree, there was a success with North. We also tried to stop the closure of Cityview, which was not successful. I'll come back to that in a second. The result here is that we have, we're home to the charter movement, right? 20 years ago, this is where it started, and a little while ago, there was a big celebration of the charter supporters about that. But we have examples of what's happening in Minneapolis. The school district itself is sponsoring charter schools. So rather than creating true equity and strong public schools in our system, we're just passing it off to others to try to do what apparently the district can't do. We did that at Cityview. The district closed the school and leased the building to the Minneapolis School of Science. You may have read about that. If you haven't, go back and look up Minnesota School of Science. They told the district last year, or this past summer, that they no longer would service special ed kids that were still in the building, because there were a population of special ed, a program of special ed students, that the district had nowhere to move, and you have to mainstream special ed students part of the day. And so they asked the school, the charter school, to help with the mainstreaming, and they reluctantly did it for a year, and then after a year they said, no, we're done. It's interfering with our ability to increase test scores, so we're not going to serve these students. So, and the district is the sponsor of the school. At a minimum, the district should have announced that you need to look for a new sponsorship and that you need to look for a new building because the district leases the building to the school. That, to my knowledge, has not happened yet. So there are, again, other stories I'll try to skip through. We also have an issue with Teach for America. Teach for America started with this sort of noble idea that there are places where they literally can't find a licensed teacher to go into a classroom. And so they were going to get college graduates to come in and teach the students who they couldn't find anybody for. In Minneapolis and Minnesota, you can probably throw a rock and hit a licensed teacher who's looking for a job. And yet we have TFA in Minneapolis and in the metro area. And I asked one of the former leader of TFA locally, why are you here? And the answer was, well, it's not about the classroom, it's about leadership. There's a lack of educational leadership in Minnesota. So TFA is going to make educational leaders. And if you look at their websites, you'll see that's part of the agenda, to create educational leadership. And we've got somebody who's running for school board who's a former TFA'er. And our district, the people who are right now in charge of the teacher evaluation system and the focused instruction, which the last thing I'll explain, those two programs that are basically managing teachers in the district, and I would say micromanaging teachers in the district, are led by former TFA'ers. There are 6 people who are the kind of the core group there. Those 6 people combined have a combined 10 years of classroom experience. And they are directing the teachers in the district who have 10, 20, 30 years of experience and evaluating us. And the evaluation process itself is brought to us by none other than the Gates Foundation. And you can look this one up again as well. The evaluation system that we have is from a program called the MET, Measure of Effective Teaching, I believe it stands for. Yeah. Thank you. And the district came and talked to to a union meeting that we had, talked to us about part of this program and this evaluation program. And when asked about research, they basically said, well, the foundation did research and we're sort of counting on that to justify this. So there was no outside research done to assess the validity of any of these things that are happening in the evaluation process. And the other big sort of, the district has said that there are sort of 2 big parts to improving the district and school performance. Teacher evaluation is one thing. We're going to evaluate teachers and make them better, tied to student test scores, thank you. And then the other piece is we're going to have what's called focused instruction. And focused instruction is like the local version of standards and what's called Common Core nationally. And it is really about more testing and teaching to the test. We will have each class, every class, will be divided into units. The units have to happen in a certain pattern. At the end of each unit, there has to be a test. Again, there's a lot more to this, but we are increasing the level of standardization and standardized testing, and that is not going to lead to a better outcome. It's not going to lead to equity, which is part of the argument behind it, that this is all about equity for our students. This is a disservice to our students. And I think Chris started this all out really well when he was talking about, as a, someone who wants to be a teacher and hearing that, you should be a teacher and then the political stuff is somewhere else. If you think that somebody in a classroom can separate politics from what they're doing, you're kidding yourself. Mm. There is nothing more political than education, and you need to be engaged in that process. So I will stop there, and I'm going to take it over to questions. I just want to say one other thing. I encourage people to go to PEJAM.org. It's a blog that kind of updates you on some of these issues, and also there's a Facebook page if you want to look there for Public Education Justice Alliance of Minnesota. Thank you.